Well done. Good one. Okay, next we have a gentleman who is running a company called June Energy.
Yeah.
And what we have.
Yeah, it should be a fascinating one because it's about customer service excellence. And something for me is that customer service can sometimes seem that not something that a green organization might need to do because it's the right thing to do. So surely you should do it anyway. But actually, we're all humans. We all love an excellent service experience. And so actually, it's really important for ecological, environmental, circular economy, any type of organization to provide this excellent service, to get away from that kind of tree huggery sort of perspective that people have, that it's the worthy, right thing to do. No, we should do it because it's the best service and also green. So looking forward to hearing about this.
Welcome, Vincent.
Thanks.
Cheers.
The stage is yours. Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Vincent. Just to give you some context, I have been working in the energy sector since 2003. I started working there as a software engineer at Nuon, Belgium. I left at Nuon in 2010. By that time, I was working in marketing. For Eneco, I chose for Eneco company with a really, I believe, a really sound and solid vision on how the future of energy should look like. But after 4 to 5 years, I thought that we need even more acceleration and impact on creating this future. So I decided to, with my partners, start our own company in order to enable this future faster. And when we're talking about accelerating the future, of course, the first question is, what's this future that we want to accelerate? And this slide says a lot of things that have been said already. We all know that we are in an energy transition from fossil to renewable energy. Most of us, at least definitely in this room and also outside of this room, agree that it's a really necessary transition, and the faster it happens, the better it will be. We see this future as being a distributed energy system, a peer-to-peer distributed energy system. And Emerick, his slide showed it really well. When I look at the vision that, for instance, Eneco has, they are talking about a decentralized future. Distributed is just one step further, where we can have peer-to-peer transactions and we are able to buy and sell energy to each other. So that's the future that we want to accelerate. But of course, that future has a lot of challenges. Most of them, if not all, have been mentioned already today. But the starting point to be able to create that future is, of course, if I want to buy electricity from the solar installation of my neighbor, I have to know which consumption I need at what time, and I have to know if there is any overproduction from my neighbor at that time. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, of course, because storage is not profitable enough yet, and even if it was, it would be more efficient to balance the network as much as possible, is that, for instance, for solar installations, we produce most of our energy during the day, the moment we need it the least, so probably prices, not probably, for sure, prices of solar energy at noon will be cheaper than they will be, for instance, in the evening. So we have to have clear sight on that as well in order to make the market work. But today, what we have is actually in most European countries, definitely in Belgium, we have a blind distribution when we look at residential level. We don't know anything about who uses or produces what at any given time. We just know, in the best case, once a year, what our consumption or our production was in the past year, but not every minute. So we believe that today we have inefficient structures and organizations in order to create that future, that there's a very top-down approach by decision makers and politicians. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this as a critique. I think they're doing good jobs and they need to continue that, but we believe that it's not enough because there's a lack of incentives to have also a bottom-up movement and to get people to go from intent to action. And as I said, we all agree that we need to take action. And the faster we take that action, the better it will be because the less harm will result. But we don't, because there's something in between intention and action, and that's called the motivational gap. So we need to be motivated in order to also act on what we say that we want to do. And there's two parts in this. There's the gap. The bigger the gap is, the more difficult it is to take action. And the lower our motivation is, the more difficult it is to go from intent to action. So when we look at motivation, we can illustrate it with this equation, where actually it's an equation of different parameters. At first, the more value I get from doing something, the higher my motivation will be to do that. Second thing is that the more sure I am to get this value, the more motivated I will be. So if the expectancy of getting what I want is high, I will be more motivated to do it. But there's also some things that make my motivation go down. And one of them is the rate of impulsiveness. If I'm really impulsive, I'm not gonna do a lot on this one thing because I'm going to start doing something new before I get the result of taking action. And of course, there's also the delay that impacts it. The longer it takes to get what I want, the more motivated I will have to be to actually get it. A good example in this one is most people, when New Year's has passed, they say, or lots of people say, I want to get a better physical condition. And the annoying thing with getting physical condition, it's not because you go do sports once that you get a good physical condition. You have to do it several times, more than once, a few times a week for years and months and so on. And the delay is very long because in between doing something and getting the reward, in this example, physical condition, it takes a long time. And what we want to do with June is actually bridge this motivational gap as good as we can. And as was mentioned, we believe we can do that by creating the best customer experience possible. So we have several steps how we think we can help to create this distributed future of energy. And the first step in that is addressing the needs of consumers. I call this first priority, meaning that that's something we all want. We can like it or we can dislike it, but it's a fact that everybody in the energy domain as a consumer wants to pay less for their energy. Everybody wants to do so. Some people choose for green energy, but the cheapest of the green energy. Some choose for the local, even better green energy, but then again, they'll look for the cheapest and so on. So that's the first thing we want to address. And let's take a look if there's any possibilities in addressing that, that wish, that need of the consumer. And this is a graph that shows the average cost for, not the average cost, the cost for an average household in Belgium, from the cheapest to the most expensive one, electricity and gas combined. And what we see is that when we look at the top 3 in market share in energy suppliers, over 70%, they have over 70% market share, and they have the cheapest and the most expensive energy tariffs in the market. And I can assure you, unfortunately, the majority of this 70% is not on the cheapest tariffs of these suppliers. They are on the other side of this graph. The difference between the cheapest and the most expensive one is over 500 euros this month, Last month it was a little bit less. Maybe next month it will be more. It's always between 450 and 550, 600 euros. So, but it's not because the cheapest and the most expensive lie that far apart that you're sure you can save money. But there's the Flemish regulator in electricity and gas that does research every year. And every year, the average potential saving is between 200 and 300 euros. It's not a coincidence that that's more or less in the middle between the minimum and the maximum. Even though this is the case, what we see is that over 60% of Belgian consumers haven't switched in the past 2 years. Although they can save money, over 200 euros by doing so. And even more, almost 70% of consumers say they don't have time to do it themselves. It's another way for saying that they're not motivated to do it themselves. So, of course, energy suppliers know that as well. And instead of making it more easy to switch and take out more barriers to switch, they tend to make it more difficult, because together in Belgium again, they created over 100 different energy tariffs, although there's only, which is a good thing that there's 20 suppliers, but there's on average 5 tariffs per supplier, and it's all electricity, it's all gas. And at any given time, they have over 60 promotions, welcome deals for new customers, so it makes it even more difficult to understand and to do something, so the gap between intention and action gets bigger. And the first thing is, what we created is something to try to get this gap smaller. And I have a small video to show that could be shown right now.
The energy market today seems like a big contest of suppliers who all promise to be the cheapest, greenest, most honest, the best. It's not easy to choose, and changing between suppliers is just utterly exhausting. June takes a smarter approach, more personal, transparent, and simple. June listens to your personal wishes and preferences. She automatically compares, calculates, and switches you to the best possible supplier for your profile at any given time. That way, you always benefit from the best possible deals. June will take the bureaucratic hassle off your hands. Using a smart meter reader, June takes a closer look at your consumption. Every day, she learns more. That way, she helps you to not only pay less, but also consume more efficiently, and above all, stress less. June, smart energy.
So the motivation you need to save money in this case, out of the 9 minutes apparently we spend every year on energy, take out 2 minutes, subscribe once, give your preferences, and from that moment onwards everything goes automatically. So you don't need to have motivation anymore because the system is doing this for you. And while doing that, the system is also measuring your consumption, as was mentioned in the small video as well. But as I mentioned as well, there's currently not really much insight in that consumption and production. So we created something for that as well, because that's the basis to take the next step in this transition. And the next step is improving the energy management of people. By measuring their consumption, we will get to know better how they produce, how they consume, and how we can make this an efficient system. So we can advise them on which storage they might need, or which solar panels, or how they can combine better maybe solar panels on the house of the neighbor and being used by the whole community. But we need that consumption in order to be able to analyze all those things. And it has to be easy, because consumer experience is important in order to get the gap of motivation really small. So we created our own device, which is, to begin with, much cheaper than any smart meter that's on the market now. One reason for that is because there's no installation cost. It's as simple as sticking it on your existing analog meter. So the only thing you have to be motivated for is to stick this on your meter, and then you'll start saving money over 200 euros a year. But in the process, you will have more insight in your consumption and your production as well. And so you will be prepared in order to be able to participate in this new future of peer-to-peer distribution. Because if we look at energy invoices, in Belgium definitely, but I can imagine in lots of other countries as well, the case is that almost 50% of the total costs we pay are transport and distribution costs. And we believe that with an automated peer-to-peer system, this can be much more efficient, and thus that will help also to decrease prices further. To come into a situation where actually we as consumer and as a prosumer are more important in the market than we are today, more important than the others, the energy suppliers and transporters, etc., are now the big images in the picture. Well, we believe that it should be the crowd that is more important and more, let's say, in the driver's seat of this market. And that's how we think that we can motivate people to go faster from intention to action in order to evolve from a situation where you had electricity, but now you will have power.
Great. Vincent, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.